Hi, my name is Lauren McLaughlin, and I was one of the co-counselors of Strike Bark this year. And today I'm just going to do a little Devo for you. It's based on Jeremiah 29:11, and I also like to call it the Lighthouse Devo for reasons you'll know later. So Jeremiah 29:11 through 13 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. In these days when you pray, I will listen. If you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me." Now, that was in a letter from Jeremiah to some Israelites who were actually being held captive in Babylon for about 70 years. And so that's a long time. God was telling them to be patient because he said he was going to bring them back to Israel. And he said, I have a future for you, and it's going to be good. So no matter how old you are, inevitably sometime you're going to have to face a certain decision or some sort of idea of a plan or what you want in your future. And God just asks you to trust him, because he has plans not to harm you. He only wants to give you good. And it might not be in the way that you originally expect. Because, these people were forced to stay in Babylon for a long time, but they didn't lose hope because of what Jeremiah told them. So one of the reasons I really like this verse is because of this journal right here. It's on the back and the front, and it's got a lighthouse. This is actually given to me after I graduated by my godmother. She's a really big fan of lighthouses, and now I kind of understand why, because with this verse you kind of see that God is your lighthouse, and you're the ship on the waves, lost in the middle of the ocean. But if you pray to God and you look toward him and you say, your will, not mine, be done, Lord, then you will have those plans. He will give you that hope and future. And so normally I ask my campers to draw a lighthouse during this next part because I think that it's a good reminder that God is your lighthouse. And it gives them something to do while I read this. So if you want to do that at home, be my guest. I'm going to read a story about how God's plans for you might not look like what you originally expected, but how they are better for you in the end. It's called The Three Trees by Max Lucado, a wonderful author. It says, there were 3 trees on a hill in the woods. They were discussing their hopes and dreams when the first tree said, "Someday I hope to be a treasure chest. I could be filled with gold, silver, and precious gems. I could be decorated with intricate carving, and everyone would see the beauty." Then the second tree said, "Someday I will be a mighty ship. I will take kings and queens across the waters and sail to the corners of the world. Everyone will feel safe in me because of the strength of my hull." Finally, the third tree said, "I want to grow to be the tallest and straightest tree in the forest. People will see me on top of the hill and look up to my branches and think of the heavens and God and how close to them I am reaching. It will be the greatest tree of all time, and people will always remember me." After a few years of praying that their dreams would come true, a group of woodsmen came upon the trees. When one came to the first tree, he said, "This looks like a strong tree. I think I should be able to sell the wood to a carpenter," and he began cutting it down. The tree was happy because he knew that the carpenter would make him into a treasure chest. At the second tree, the woodsman said, "This looks like a strong tree. I should be able to sell it to the shipyard." The second tree was happy because he knew he was on his way to becoming a mighty ship. When the woodsman came upon the third tree, the tree was frightened because he knew that if they cut him down, his dreams would not come true. One of the woodsmen said, "I don't need anything special from my tree, so I'll take this one," and he cut it down. When the first tree arrived at the carpenter's, he was made into a feed box for animals. He was then placed in a barn and filled with hay. This is not at all what he had prayed for. The second tree was cut and made into a small fishing boat. His dreams of being a mighty ship and carrying kings had come to an end. The third tree was cut into large pieces and left alone in the dark. The years went by, and the trees forgot about their dreams. Then one day, a man and woman came to the barn. She gave birth, and they placed the baby in the hay in the feed box that was made from the first tree. The man wished that he could have made a crib for the baby, but this manger would have to do. The tree could feel the importance of this event and knew that it had held the greatest treasure of all time. Years later, a group of men got in the fishing boat made from the second tree. One of them was tired and went to sleep. While they were out on the water, a great storm arose, and the tree didn't think it was strong enough to keep the men safe. The men woke the sleeping man And he stood and said, "Peace," and the storm stopped. At this time the tree knew that it had carried the King of Kings in its boat. Finally someone came and got the third tree. It was carried through the streets as the people mocked the man who was carrying it. When they came to a stop, the man was nailed to the tree and raised in the air to die at the top of a hill. When Sunday came, the tree came to realize that it was strong enough to stand at the top of the hill and be as close to God as was possible, because Jesus had been crucified on it. The moral of this story is that when things don't seem to be going your way, always know that God has a plan for you. If you place your trust in Him, He will give you great gifts. Each of the trees got what they wanted, just not in the way they had imagined. We don't always know what God's plans are for us. We just know that His ways are not our ways, but His ways are always best. So I think that's a very memorable story and a good way to recall that God is always looking out for you.